it's very difficult to not try to equate your self-esteem and your confidence and your skill to how popular you want to be. And that's why I tell, like, when I talk to kids and I talk to them and I'm like, you can't base your confidence and your worth on how many people like you. That's just in life. You can't do that.
Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen. I make no apologies. This is me. And I know that I deserve your love. There's nothing, no, not
You were listening to Notables, an Education Through Music podcast. As always, I'm your host, Noah, and in today's episode, I'm joined by Wei Ani. Wei is the author of The Little Girl with the Big Voice, and she was also a contestant on The Voice, the television show, in season 11, and this most recent season of American Idol. But I suspect you probably already know that. Wei, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I'm wondering if you could tell me a little bit about your early experiences with music and music education.
Yeah, I am a huge product of music education and being able to have it accessible to me. I grew up acting, singing, and dancing, and I started singing when I was around like 12, which was a little later than people would have thought, since I started my actual career at 16.
Yeah.
So like that turnaround is pretty fast.
Right.
But I was able to do that through situations like scholarships and amazing teachers. And my vocal coach, who I've had since I was 13, she's still currently my vocal coach.
Oh, wow.
And so that has helped change my life.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was a kid that was looking for a huge outlet because, you know, kids go through their own stresses and a lot of people don't like to kind of focus on that. They're going to say, oh, you're a kid. Like, what do you have going for you? You got a roof over your head. You got food. You got everything kind of laid out for you. But proper outlets are important because when you give a kid a proper outlet, they turn into healthier teenagers and healthier adults mentally and emotionally. So thankfully, that was the situation with me. And I started off with opera. And then I went into jazz vocals and theater, and then eventually pop and R&B.
What a fascinating trajectory to start with opera, and that. Well, it's sort of like you went through these different facets of music and sort of in chronological order.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we go back to the very beginning of that chronological order, you mentioned that there were scholarships and you were able to get in touch with your current vocal coach at the age of 13. What was that process like, and what kicked it off?
Yeah, so I was in middle school. I was in 8th grade, and I had really wanted to sing, and I did everything under the sun. I was already dancing. I was already acting. I did sports galore, and I just felt like that thing was missing for me. And my dad had said, oh, there's this program at Harlem School of the Arts, and it's a prep program. And you audition to get in, and it basically gives you a scholarship to be able to go to this after-school program, and it preps you for college. And I was horrified. I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if the people will be nice to me. They might think I'm weird. They might think, and I was just like, but it ended up being the best thing ever. And my vocal coach actually was somebody who was running a choir program at the school. And it was called the Dorothy Maynard Singers. she was called in to teach a choir.
Mhm.
But there was only maybe about 5 of us in the class. So we had to change it from the Dorothy Maynard Choir, Dorothy Maynard who founded HSA, to Dorothy Maynard Singers. Because there was only 5 of us and it was only girls.
Mm.
And so there was alto 1, alto 2. There was soprano 1, soprano 2. And then those of us who have deeper voices, which is me, we could double as like tenors
Right.
and, try to figure out how we can make it sound like there's 20 of us instead of 5 of us. And we'd be able to get solos. And I was like, oh, okay, I want to get a solo. And I'm thinking very large of myself. Like, I sing very loud, so I would be able to get a solo. And she was not budging. I was not able. And I was like, I don't understand. I'm not able to get a solo. Why not? And she was like, you're not fighting for it. You're just expecting it to be given to you. And that definitely was like a punch in the gut, because you're like, dang it. Like, I didn't think I was expecting it, but I was expecting because I was one of the louder singers. But then I had to think in my head, way louder does not always mean better. And so she was like, let's do some vocal coaching. Let's get better. You have stuff that you have to work on. Let's get stronger. Let's be a lot more prolific in your attack on certain notes. Let's learn your scales. Let's be very intentional. And it was hard. It was really hard to be able to do that because we started off on difficult stuff, on standard jazz songs, on opera, making sure that I knew certain arias, how to pronounce things. Pronouncing something in German is very different than pronouncing something in Italian. And,
Right.
it was difficult, but it helped curate me to who I am because now, goodness gracious, I'm a perfectionist to a T when it comes to a lot of vocal stuff. And it's superpower, but also it is annoying for half the time.
We can stay in Harlem or be bougie in Manhattan. Go to Magic Johnson's or just see whatever happens. I'm a simple girl. I don't need
I'm thinking of
anything.
the experience for a teenager and being told you're expecting this and you're not working for it. But then this pivot to here's the path forward. It's not a no, it's a here's the way to actually get there.
Yeah.
That's such a powerful, teachable moment especially for a music teacher. I wonder how that moment has, and you've already sort of alluded to this, that you're a perfectionist when it comes to your voice, but I wonder how that has prepared you both on and off stage in the life of a performer.
Yeah, there's every performer has a moment where they ask themselves, like, am I doing the best that I can? Like, am I truly doing the best that I can with the circumstances that I'm given, with the energy that I have around me? Am I putting my best foot forward? And I think that moment when I was younger always kind of plays in my head, like, am I doing the best that I can, or am I just expecting to coast?
Mhm.
Basically, because there are certain things that can be a little easier. But I always take into account, like, humble yourself, because there's definitely somebody out there who's working just as hard as you. And you need to be able to work 10 times harder. Just like well, at least my father definitely always equates me to an athlete because he coached basketball, girls basketball, and he played ball himself. So he is very athletic driven.
Mhm.
And so he treated me no different. Like, he was like, singing is a sport and you have to treat it as such. And he's like, this is your layup. Go ahead and do this. Like, if I'm doing a show that I'm like, I don't know if I really want to do this, and I this is going to be like not tough, but it's going to be kind of like monotonous. And he's like, no, these are you're still practicing. You're doing drills. You can always have an opportunity to better yourself. And it's like, okay, so that's another opportunity to be like, humble yourself. do what needs to be done to always get better, because like, Steph Curry has to always, he does his cool half court shots,
Right.
and his jump shot is great. His 3-point shot is phenomenal. He does what he needs to do, right? But he still needs to practice doing layups, and he still needs to practice being able to throw from the the free throw line. And I feel like that's what's been able to keep me going during bigger performances, is because I know that I've been able to put my best foot forward this entire time. And all of those teachable moments kind of come to a boiling point for every performance, because people don't know this. Not too much. I say it all the time, but I don't think people believe me. I get nervous for every performance. Every performance. Like, there's not one I don't get nervous for. Even when I have to speak in front of kids or teachers, especially if it's a smaller crowd, because if there's a smaller crowd, that means you can look into everyone's eyes.
Their faces.
Yeah, you can see everyone, and everyone can see you. So it's like, dang, at least when there's a bigger stage, there's lights. So you can't see too much. You can't see the people all the way in the back or too much up at the top. But no, you have those moments where you're like, okay, I did the best that I can. I'm super nervous because I put a lot of effort into this, and I want this to go well. But I like being nervous for all of my performances.
And now for a short break. This podcast is made possible by Education Through Music. ETM's mission is to positively impact student motivation, achievement, and self-confidence by partnering with under-resourced schools to integrate music education into the core curriculum. To find out more or to support ETM's mission, visit etmonline.org. How do you deal with being nervous especially when you're performing in such high stakes environments?
Yeah. Part of it is a lot of prep, like prepping myself for it, which is why I'm it's very important to feel prepared and ready for your performance, because it's one type of nervous to just be like, okay, I have everything ready, I just really want it to go well. And then there's another type of nervous where it's like, I don't even know how to do this, I'm not ready, I don't think I can do this. That's a whole other type of nervous. So what I do whenever I'm really nervous is I get really quiet. I get really quiet. I play some of my favorite hype music that I can think in my head, something that has nothing to do with the show that I'm trying to focus on. I definitely pray. I take quiet time to myself. I don't like to talk too much before a show. And then I get ready. I do some jumping jacks. I do some sit-ups, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. Very much like an athlete. You kind of just you get your hype music, you warm up, you get your things together. I have my tea, I have my people with me, and I get ready to go and perform the best that I can.
To refer back to the Steph Curry thing, he wasn't born with that 3-point shot or that half-court shot. That's something that he developed over time. I think that's something that I think is so important for young musicians to hear. American Idol isn't going to show you, spending hours on scales.
No, but they should, because I feel like people, if they did, then people would understand how much work definitely goes into it, because there's a lot of work that goes into not just making the show, between production and the people who interview you, and even just the PAs that run around and everything. It's a lot of work on yourself. So yeah, it's the routine is very important to keep yourself grounded.
Yeah, and I think on the one hand, it's important so that people don't diminish what a really skilled I say skilled and not talented, right? Because you could say either, but I think skill really specifies the amount of work that goes
Yeah,
in.
I agree.
Do wonders for people not to be able to diminish the amount of work that goes into it.
Yeah.
And not to be able to throw up their hands and say, well, I wasn't born with this. I won't be able to do this.
Right.
But then conversely, I think about the amount of access that sort of grants to a young musician who just doesn't know the way forward, or who doesn't have access to a great vocal coach like you had, who told you, no, you're not ready for a solo. Here's the path forward. Here's how you work and how you get there. I think that piece, that it is a lot of work, but it is possible, I think is so important for students of music.
Yes, I constantly say, like, again, people don't see that kind of work that goes into like just it's a monotonous thing that is constantly being developed. And you know, it's very glamorized and glorified in like the sports world. You get to see people practicing, you get to see them, and there's the dramatic music behind them, and ESPN is like, oh, they're getting ready and everything. Oh, they're doing it right. But for musicians, you kind of have this feeling of, oh, if they're talented, they're talented, and they keep going, and that's it. And it's like, well, no. You know, talent is just the thing that opens up the door for you to be able to do what you actually want to do. And there's a lot of situations where people are like, well, look at so-and-so. They didn't have any vocal coaching. And it's like, okay, well, you have to understand the idea of longevity. And longevity is what makes or breaks you in this industry, because 10% of it is talent. 90% of it is the work that you put in.
Right.
Because like if even just something as simply as scheduling, you know, you look at everybody and you're like, okay, like this person showed up late. They're super talented, right? But they showed up late. They don't know the material. They aren't the greatest to work with. Their attitude and their demeanor is not good. They're kind of dismissive to everything. And so, yes, they may be able to have all the talent and do this, but this other person is showing up on time, knows the material and everybody else's material. They're able to do everything with a great attitude, and they may not be as talented, but we can work on that. They can have that grow. You know, when you stay at the same place the whole time and you don't evolve into a better artist, then you're stuck.
Right.
And you're stuck at the level that you stopped at or started at, or worse, because when you don't use it, you lose it. You know?
I wanna know what you're good for. Yeah, I wanna know what you're good for.
Maybe this would be a good time to transition to using it, and and you mentioned that, you know, we might talk a little bit about American Idol and how that experience was, and where your momentum is now focused for the next, you know, foreseeable future.
Yeah. American Idol was amazing. I've met some of the best friends that I have in my life now, and I'm so grateful for that. But people don't know, especially because they cut so much of it out. They film hours and hours and hours of us doing so much stuff. But they don't show you how difficult it is on a daily basis. Just getting up is really difficult. And it takes a lot of work. It's not glamorous. It's not something that we're not getting catered to. We're not, it's a, hey, you're on the clock sort of a situation. Like, hey, you have this is your schedule, right? We'll make sure that you eat. We'll make sure that you get this. but you have to have this interview. You have to do this practice. You have to know these songs. You have to pick your songs. We need this list of songs. If it gets approved, then it gets approved. If it doesn't get approved, we need 3 backups. If those 3 backups don't get approved, we need to get another 2 backup songs. We need to be able, so it's like there's a lot that people don't see. We're up for hours being able to get stuff done, practicing, trying to see how we're gonna perform, and if we're gonna do well with the bands. Then there's in-ear practices. Yeah, it's not a glamorous journey, but I think the reason that you make such great friends, because that's what they told us when we first started, you're going to make some of the best friends that you have. The reason why is because you guys are trauma bonded through through all of the crap that has happened and all of the things that you've gone through. And it's just the nature of the beast. It's meant to try to, forgive me, it's meant to break you. The show, at least the beginning of it is. And it's meant to see, like, okay, who can survive this bit of it to get to the next harder part, which is difficult emotionally, mentally. You're away from your people for a really long time. And you don't know whether America's going to like you or choose you. And so you're at the mercy of popularity now instead of talent, or instead of, like, it's like you could be super talented, right? But if you're not a fan favorite, you don't make it to a certain point that you want to make it to.
Thus concludes part 1 of my interview with Wei and E. Be sure to tune in next week for part 2, in which Wei and I will discuss American Idol at greater depth and talk about some really exciting upcoming performances and other projects. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time.